Welcome to the Jamodi podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is Jamodi, just a matter of doing it. But you seem to get the most out of them that you can.
We're sure trying to figure it out, just trying to, like you said earlier, is there a better way to do this? Is there a more efficient way to do this? Is there something that I'm missing? And I think a huge piece of that is me developing myself as well,
Yeah.
right? Like I think a lot of coaches, they miss out on that point. It's the age old, and I may ruffle some feathers with this, but it's that age old, do what I say, not what I do. And I think today's kids are, and they're too smart for that. They want to see what's going on. But they want to see it in you, and they also want to see it in themselves. Now, is there a way to get it done? In my opinion, is there a way to reach a certain level of success doing that? Yes, because people have done it for years, right?
Yep.
I just feel like the way that we are, like I usually frame it to people like this. There's certain people that they operate inside the box. There's people that operate outside the box. And then what I like to do is I don't have a box. I'm just here, right? I'm just dreaming, you know? And so like I try to get our kids, like there's no constraints. If you want to go get something, you go get it. And then we work on how to do that and how to go about getting it.
Yeah, Watsa, the president of PGC, said more is caught than taught. And so we're trying to teach or show them. We want to teach them to have a growth mindset in the way that they train, process based, constantly pushing the limits of what they can do and continuing to dream. But are they seeing that in us? Do they see us going to clinics, taking things from the Jamodi pod? No, anything that any podcast, anything that they listen to, any books that we're reading, do they see us stretching ourselves? I think I went through a stretch where I was probably the same coach for 3 or 4 or 5 years. Not a lot changed. And then, but then I also think there's that Jeff Clarkson of Prestonwood, he asked me, like, because I get to do these talks, he said, well, how do you decide what you listen to, like out of all the stuff you're listening to, what you take and what you don't? And I said, I think that's the balance, because you can't do everything. Like none of us, you mentioned with those 60 sets, you can't teach all of them. So even with our growth, we have to really pick and choose based on who we are, the way we think, the way we dream, who our players are, what will help lead them to winning within our style of play. And then you choose those concepts, but you're always out there being curious.
Oh yeah, and I liked what you said earlier, because it goes along with, obviously what you believe and I do as well, is like if you can find that niche within somebody, a piece of who you are, right? Like when you see our kids, I'm too old, but like I see myself in them, right? They're better than me. That's no question, but it's because I've become better, right? Like one of the best things that I did this preseason was I got on a coaches mentorship program with Phil Beckner. I signed up for that and did that whole thing, and it was crazy. I going in, I thought it was going to be a player development thing, because during listening to some of his player development stuff, it was all personal growth, right? All personal growth. Like the last one was the 5 developmental keys to growth, right? And how you can learn to be present was the end game. And then he went through these 5 different steps, but just amazing material that then I can take back and teach it to our kids. Because I think what they get flipped around, and a lot of coaches do, I was guilty of it when I was younger, even so much so before I got here, right? Was we had it backwards, right? You try to be this great basketball coach or teacher or whatever, instead of being a great person first and figuring out like, hey, who do I want to be, and who do I want to set, what vision, which direction do I want to take these kids and in this program? Because kids are hungry. I really believe that, like in all places, and I've coached all different types of kids, different backgrounds, different stories. The one constant about all of them was they are hungry. Like if somebody will pour into them and lean into them and be what they need in that moment in that situation, they're going to respond. Now they won't all because they're different.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that speaks to what I think makes us different is just the freedom that we give for them to be different. Like I know a lot of, and you can chime in on this because now that we're talking about, I'm thinking about this question for you. Traditional mindset of, I want all my guys to play together in the summer. I'm not like that. Like I don't think that's bad. I don't think that's bad whatsoever. I think a lot of people do that, and I think it's great. But I think, it's cool to see kids. I take us like see our Keller kids from ninth grade to varsity, and even some of our younger ones go out and be the best player that they can be and man, go try to conquer the world. I tell parents, go, get them involved in everything that they can and see what the basketball world has to offer. And then we'll come back and we'll be better young men because those experiences I think make them grow, right? And they get to be a different person.
Yeah.
They get to be a different basketball player. They get to dream a little bit for in a lot of situations. So I don't know how you feel about that. That's one of those traditional things that just kind of popped in my mind that I know a lot of coaches like them to play summer leagues and fall leagues and spring leagues. That's another thing that
Coach,
we play in a
that's a rabbit hole I don't think you really want me to go down. The whole traditional mindset. Sometimes
yeah.
I think I'm a little shocked at how far I've gone. So first of all, I do believe I love the purity of the school ball season. And I call it that, the school ball season from, mid-October through hopefully March, right? Like I love the purity of it because it's this idea of blending their individual wants and desires and moving that along with a group of people. And hopefully that group is coming together for a higher purpose, something bigger than themselves. But you can't forsake the individual goals and that path, that you have to get them both moving together. I love that part of it. But I think Grapevine Faith basketball ends our last game of the season. I think it's over, and I think their select ball season begins.
Yeah.
Their select ball season is all about them. And that time of year, all about them. So I become their skills coach at that point. I'm not thinking about Grapevine Faith next year and what we need to do defensively. We're not doing any shell drill in the spring. We're not working on blockouts. I'm sorry. I don't mean to. That's the tone there, coaches. I apologize, but we're not doing that. And I'm not doing spring leagues, summer leagues, or fall leagues because one, I take a ton of their time from October through March. I want them to go play select basketball. If they have aspirations to play in college, yeah, they got to do that. But even early on, if they don't, listen to a different voice, learn a different style of play. Because we love the way we play, but it's not the only way. There's a lot of things our style doesn't do. We don't screen, and we rarely ball screen. So like I want them to learn those things because we don't do that at Grapevine Faith. We play in space, we create advantages and closeouts, and we shoot catch threes. But there's other ways to do it. And then also what I do love from that is when they do come back from learning a different style. Hey, how'd you like it? What'd you think, coach? I just really like how we play. Hey, that's good. That's okay. I mean, I love hearing that. Or, hey, what do you take from that? Coach, here's something we should maybe look at. Here's something we did. Here's a great set. I love that. What do you got? Draw it up for me. Connecting myself with that world with them is huge. We do the TABC showcase because I get to be there with them. College coaches, I like that connection with it. All the other high schools are there. It's like a rite of passage if we're not doing that. But even in there, I'm not resulting in those moments. I'm not thinking about what the next season's going to be like based on what they do on June 25th when we haven't been practicing at all. And half of them have been on family vacation because they're kids and they're well-to-do. Most of the kids here, they've got a cabin in Colorado that they've been at for 2 weeks. So yeah, you kind of suck this, today, but I'm not worried about you. We're going to be okay, and then come the fall, come the fall, like we're approaching the big race. Why do I want them worn out? Why do they need to go compete after school when they should be going home and doing their schoolwork? Like, let them go right at the bell and know what that feels like to leave at 3:45, because you know what? You're not going to get to leave until at least 6:30, probably 9 o'clock at night on Tuesdays and Fridays for the next 4 months. So, Coach, that's how I feel.
No,
That's how I feel about it.
I'm in line with you. When it becomes the spring, um, in the falls, obviously you got to start working some team stuff in. But we don't do fall leagues, we don't do spring leagues, we don't do summer leagues. We'll do a couple shootouts, um,
And I like
and
the shootouts, but I always felt the friction between like uh, all of them being in town for those.
yeah,
And then also too, it's just like asking myself what's really happening in that moment. What is being gained from us doing that? Like, I don't know about you. I don't like when my players are predetermining what the season's going to be like. Maybe their role, maybe
yeah,
another guy's shot selection, maybe the way someone's communicating. When one, I'm not there. Like I'm not, and we haven't been practicing. We've been
right.
doing mainly skill work, layering in our offense, getting in the weight room. Like that's what we've been doing in the fall. Um, I want to almost keep them from one, there's no scholarships being found at that time.
Yeah.
I want to keep them from resulting themselves and prejudging what this season's going to be like. Let's like in PGC, when I was directing with them, we would talk to our athletes right at the beginning. Raise your hand if you've been to this camp before. And a lot of them raise their hands. Raise your hand if you've heard about this camp from other people. I said, okay, drop your expectations. Drop your expectations. Whatever you thought, whatever you've been through, whatever you thought was going to happen, for whatever reason, this is going to be completely different. It's going to be brand new. We're going to start this thing for like, that's the way I look at it, because I don't think, what did it was the COVID year. I didn't train those guys all spring. I barely saw them during the summer. And at Faith, we didn't start school until 6 weeks later. And we made it to the Final Four that year. Like my thought was, man, we just might not be very good. I haven't had my hands on them at all. Coach, they were just fine.
Yeah.
They were just fine. So like, I think like maybe there's a point of like, I got to remember who I am, and the fact that nothing I do here is magic. I'm not sprinkling anything on them. We want to be, like you said, process based, but there's a time and a place for when I'm going to be completely hands on with them. But sorry, Coach, for rambling during your time.
No, you're good. You're good. Like I said, I learned from you just like you learned it from me. So, hopefully you are.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the Jamodi podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.